Okay, so basically had this thing out twice now, with the turbo set up, all tuned and working correctly. So I got 3 trips in total. The very first one I had issues that ended up being a bad oxygen sensor. I thought it was the fuel pump at first, but anyway, so I got that stuff all fixed, and then I did a rallycross race. Ran awesome, and then I took it to the dunes for, I think we were there for like 4 days, and just ripped on this thing hard and loving it. Worked great. So being that has worked so well, and the power increase has been so good, just leaves me wanting more. So my kind of butt dyno feeling is this thing probably makes somewhere close to 150 horsepower now. Previously, like I've talked about, I've had it dynoed, and 2 different dynos, but it made 68 was the most power it's made to the wheels. So that leads me to believe it made about 100 at the motor, 90, 95, 100, somewhere in there with the drivetrain loss. And with the 8 psi, you can do the math, and just by how it feels, leads me to believe it makes about 150. And it's awesome. It's so much better, but I feel like if I can make that increase again, make about 200 horsepower, then it would just be an absolute rocket. And I'm still struggling with the cam in this thing. It just doesn't work in the bottom end. And I think the biggest issue is my Holley Sniper. With the big valve overlap and stuff, it just doesn't, I think the fuel injection just has a hard time knowing what to do until the airspeed catches up and things start flowing right. Because this thing, when it was first built, was awesome. When it had a long tube header on it and a Weber carburetor, it ran strong off the bottom. And just something's just not the same with the fuel injection. So anyway, so what I want to do now is I don't want to push this engine any harder, because I don't know the clearances inside. The ring gaps is the most concerning thing. So that leads me to my next project. All right, so what I got here is the engine that was actually in that Samurai when I first bought it. It ran, but it ran pretty terrible, and it really smoked, a lot of oil smoke. So I didn't waste my time really messing with this thing when I bought it. I just I think I bought up like 3 used engines until I had enough good parts to rebuild. I'd buy an engine and a crank would be bad, and I had one that I bought where the main journals were all blown out, like it ran hard with no oil pressure or something. So it's just, these things get run hard and put away wet. So it took, like I said, I think it took 3 engines to have enough usable pieces to build the engine that's in that car now. So I recently tore this all apart, and I really don't see any major issues. The bores all look pretty good. As far as I can tell, these are standard size pistons, although they are flat tops, which is not original for this. This is a G13A, the 1324cc. So this should have dished pistons. I don't have like bore gauges and stuff like that, but just using the caliper, from what I can tell, it looks like it's a stock bore. So I don't know if someone just wanted more power and put these flat tops in there or what, but anyway, there's some minor wear on the cylinders and stuff, but it doesn't look like anything major. So the plan, I want to build this engine for boost. So the first thing I'm starting with is I bought a set of little H-beam connecting rods. So these are made for the twin cam 1.3, the Swift GTI engine. So they're not a direct replacement, and the difference is the small end. These guys use a 17 millimeter wrist pin, and the GTI engine went to 19. So you can't use 1.3 pistons. So I've seen some other people, and the owner of Petroworks has helped me out a lot, kind of collecting, or not collecting, but knowing the combination of parts. So what you do is you use 1.6 pistons, because they also have the 19 millimeter wrist pin. And they're only a 1 millimeter larger bore than a 1.3. Most of the added displacement in a 1.6 comes from the stroke. There's like 15 millimeters more stroke or something like that. So that's the plan. I'm getting ready to, I'm gonna clean this stuff all out to just the bare block. And I'm gonna take my crank. I'm gonna bring these to the machine shop and have them checked just to make sure that everything looks good. And if they think, basically a 1 millimeter overbore will clean up and make the cylinders all great, then I'm just gonna order standard sized 1.6 pistons. I'm gonna go with Keith Black Hyper Eutectic pistons. I feel like that's kind of the best bang for the buck and the most readily available pistons I can get. I've owned dirt bikes and stuff with forged pistons, and there's definitely pros and cons, and I'm not going to go into that. But I think for my use and what I'm going to be doing, I think the Hyper Eutectics are going to be fine. So this thing will end up kind of a hybrid engine. It'll have 1.6 pistons, basically GTI spec connecting rods. And this is a 13B, so like a fuel injected Samurai crank. This is not the crank from this engine. The crank from this engine actually was kind of beat up. It had some scoring. So this is the shorter stroke of the Samurai cranks. And I've not found any information on, one being stronger than the other, but just basic engine rule of thumb, shorter stroke cranks tend to be stronger just because, the forces aren't as far away from the center line. And it's a pretty tiny difference on these cranks, but this is what I have. And so that's what I'm going to use. And I think this also gives me a little more safety margin with not pushing the pistons up so far to the deck surface. It's one thing I haven't found numbers on. I don't know if it matters, what crank you use with the 1.6 pistons and this connecting rod, but I know this will definitely be the safer option because it won't push the pistons up as far. And I'm also not looking for big compression since I'm running boost. So I'm going to run the dished pistons. And yeah, so pretty stoked. I'm got my fingers crossed that these parts are okay and usable. This crank looks great, but I haven't measured it out. But all the journals look good. The keyway's in good shape. All the seal surfaces are good. So I'm hoping I can just get this polished up and then be able to use it. And then once I know the condition of the block, then I'm going to order up those pistons and then have this board and start putting this thing together. I'm pretty stoked. This would be, I've done a lot of like dirt bikes and other motorcycles, four-wheeler engines, but this would be my first. I'm going to do everything myself that I can, all the assembly and all that kind of stuff. So I'm kind of stoked on that. Actually just got done putting this engine together. This is my son's motorcycle. It's a 78 or 79 Suzuki GS 550. We just tore that thing down and put it back together. So, you know, I'm definitely used to doing this kind of work. But like I said, I just haven't done a car engine. You know, I've done a lot of work, head gaskets and timing chains and belts and all that crap, but I just haven't done a full engine build, so I'm kind of excited. I think that's really it. Like, it's not going to be anything crazy. You know, I've got a 1.6 8-valve head to put on it. That's got the slightly bigger ports and exhaust valves. And all my manifolds that are on my car now were actually modeled off of that head. So it's all like port matched and set up basically perfect for that head. If you saw the videos before, I actually had to do a little bit of work to make them fit better on the 1.3 head. Just the ports were just a tiny bit like off center and just a little different. So not enough to be a big issue, but just enough to kind of bug me, and my perfectionist eye kind of drove me nuts. And I was a little afraid it wasn't sealing properly, but I don't know. I think it's working out just fine. So yeah, I'm gonna get the stuff hauled in and get it checked out. And I'm gonna try to move pretty fast on this. I want to, you know, I want to have the stuff all done, so once the winter hits, I can just do a quick swap and put this engine in. And like I said, with the 1.6 8-valve head, I'm gonna run just a stock cam and try to get a little more bottom end power. Because honestly, in the dunes, it's so much easier to drive with some more bottom end power. And the turbo in that 272 cam, I mean, it really helped. It starts pulling at least 2,000 RPMs lower than it used to. And that's pretty awesome. So if I could bring that down a little more, that'd be awesome. This thing would be like a tractor. So yeah, you know, I'm going to stick with all the KO3 turbo and all that stuff. Since that's all done, you know, it's going to require some retuning due to the cam and the additional boost. Like I've said before, I'm running 8 pounds right now. I just really wanted to be safe to not hurt that engine. And with this one, I want to crank it up. My sniper system is basically good with the map sensor that's in it, which I got to do some research. I'm not sure if that's replaceable, but it's basically got a map sensor that's good for 1 bar of boost. So like 14 pounds. So I'd like to push it to basically 14 pounds or close to it. Yeah, and then I'm just gonna basically leave it alone at that point. I have 2 other Samurais that I need to start working on. And I feel like at that point, the white one's gonna be basically as good as it gets, other than, you know, little stuff. Shock tuning still needs a little bit of work and things like that. But as far as the drivetrain goes, it should be done. I do have some more projects that I want to do over the winter. Putting it on a diet, and then I want to strip it completely down and just check it all out and things like that. But yeah, that's the plan. So I'm going to get this stuff off to the machine shop this morning and see what they say. Thanks for watching.